Yes, yes. You're all really getting with it today. All right, Genesis 3, one hand, and 2 Corinthians 11, the other hand, and Revelation 12 on the other hand. Now the problem comes up here when Satan shows up to Eve. How does he show up? And the devil has at least 4 different descriptions. He's described as a cherubim, he's described as an angel, he's described as a dragon, and he's described as a man. Now first of all, I'm in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, and talking about how the devil appears. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 13. For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves in the apostle of Christ. And no marvel, for Satan himself, present tense, is transformed into an angel of light. Now, that's why they usually draw the devil as an angel. But the devil never was an angel. He's not an angel now, never has been an angel. That's why they draw him as one. But the statement says transform into. Now actually the devil in the Bible in Ezekiel 28 is called a cherub. And a cherub is not an angel at all. For example, every angel in that Bible is a wingless male. He says in Hebrews chapter 13, some have entertained angels unawares. Well, how do you entertain an angel unawares that it's an angel if angels have wings? And when Lot goes to the door, here's 2 men standing out there. He invites them to come in. The men outside say, bring the men out, we may know them. Well, with wings? I mean, nonsense. They don't have wings. Lot wouldn't have thought they were men if they had wings. So angels don't have wings, but cherubim have wings. So when they draw the devil, they usually draw him as an angel and put wings on him. But that won't work, because the angels don't have wings. So the devil, as he is in actuality, was a cherub. Ezekiel chapter 28. When he appears an angel of light. What is he in actuality now? Revelation 12. Revelation 12, in actuality now, he's not a cherubim and he's not an angel. Revelation 12, verse 9. And that great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan. Right now, there it is, you can take it or leave it, he's a dragon. That's the statement. He's a dragon. And he's called that old serpent. And he appears an angel of light, and he was a cherub. All right, the question is, when he comes up to Eve, how does he show up? Well, he sure doesn't show up as a dragon, that's for sure. 2 Corinthians chapter 11 again. I mean, nobody's about to be seduced by a fire-breathing dragon. And folks say, be the devil is fire-breathing dragon? Yeah, that's it. You say like that Chinese red dragon? Mm-hmm. Folks, I start saying, you can believe in a thing like that? Well, I'll show you. 2 Corinthians chapter 11. You know, you live in a great age, I'll tell you. You live in the day and age when the people, the fundamentalists, don't believe the book they're talking about. You ever these Congress of fundamentalists meet and say, we believe the Bible is the Word of God, the verbally inspired plenary, look at us take the bold militant staff, your father's mustache. You take that whole outfit and put them right down there and say, how many of you folks believe in a Seder? S-A-T-Y-R. It's in Ezekiel, it's in Isaiah 34. There won't be a man that row believe in it. You put him right down. How many of you fellows believe in a unicorn? Psalm 22. They don't believe in unicorns. How many fellows believe in dragons? Oh, that word should have been jackal. That's where you're living. You know, you live in a day and age when the people who talk about being militant contenders for the faith and bold stand for the faith are nothing but Bible-rejecting infidels. And those people think because they believe in the deity of Christ and the virgin birth, they're believers. You know what they think? They think because they believe in the fundamentals of the faith, that makes them sound. That don't make you sound. If you're throwing everything out there you don't agree with, you know what you are? You're an infidel. You know what you are? You're a practical atheist. If that's God's book and what God said, and you're throwing out what you don't like, To all practical purposes, you're just saying there isn't any Lord. I mean, why call ye me Lord, Lord, do not the things that I say? Great age. Now, I come to 2 Corinthians chapter 11 now. Now, I believe in dragons. See? I believe in unicorns, satyrs, you know. Half goat, half man. Yep, half goat, half man. There's probably in this thing that, a centaur, half horse, half man. Yeah, I do. Folks, you must be all superstitious. Oh, no, I just read a little more than you thought I'd read, that's all. I mean, I know what they're doing at Michigan University. You don't. I know what they're doing in the genetics lab. You don't. I know what they're doing with the DNA and the RNA and the amino acids and the polypeptide chain. See, I don't just took off the lid of my hat. I know what they're working at. They're working at mutations. Well, you think they'd be the first ones to try it? How do you account for the fact back there in the Old Testament, all those old foreign people had gods, always had an animal connected with their god? How do you account for the fact when God sent the flood, he said, drown all the animals? What's wrong with the animals? Why take it out in the animals? Well, we'll get on here. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 2. Well, we'll get off something else here in a minute. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 2. I am jealous over you with godly jealousy, for I have espoused, it's an engagement, to make a spouse out of. I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you a chaste virgin to Christ. That's the similitude. A pure woman, never known a man before. A chaste virgin. Now look at the comparison, the next verse, 3. But I fear, lest by any means, as the serpent beguile Eve, is the statement. Right back in Genesis 3. As the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your mind should be corrupted in simplicity that is in Christ. Now, I don't know how far to take that thing, but as that thing stands in 2 and 3, it looks like the devil seduced Eve. That's what it looks like. Now, you just take it from the surface thing, a chaste virgin, but I fear beguile Eve. Now, because of that, the Catholic Church has taught for a long time that original sin was adultery. And the Catholic Church has taught that that was the sin of Eve, adultery with the devil. Now, that may or may not be right, and I wouldn't worry about whether it was or whether it's not coming from a Catholic. I don't care where it comes from. If something's so, it's so, no matter where it comes from. And if something's not so, it's not so, no matter where it comes from. People get funny ideas about these things. They say, well, who believed in a pre-tribulation rapture before 1850? Well, who cares? If it's so, it's so. The fact that it didn't pop up before 1850 is nothing to me. If it didn't pop up till 1940, it's nothing to me. People get bound by tradition. And they get this thing, well, if this Jesuit priest got the idea the Antichrist was a man instead of a system, well, then he couldn't have been right. Oh, he might have been right. I know where to check him out to see if he is right. Right here. But folks get an idea because so-and-so says that it's so, and if so-and-so doesn't say it, no. That's how Christians get off. All right, see how this thing with the devil shows up to Eve, and he has some kind of dealings with her. Now, there's some strong indications that the dealings do have to do with adultery. And the strongest indication is this. When that first boy, Cain, is born, Eve says, I've gotten a man from the Lord. Now you turn to 1 John chapter 2, and it says, and not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother. And why slew his brother? Because his works were evil, his brother's works were righteous. Now, you say, well, Cain, the wicked one, just means he kind of leaned toward the devil, and the devil kind of used him. Well, that might be true, except for two very rough things. Turn to John chapter 8. The relationship is a little bit heavier. John chapter 8. In the first place, Cain, the first man in the Bible, have a mark on him. And the law first mentioned in homiletics teaches the first time a thing shows up in that Bible, you want to make a special note where it shows up. Because the law first mentioned shows you the first time a thing shows up in the Bible, it'll fix the meaning of that thing throughout the Bible. For example, did you notice the first shepherd in the Bible was? It was Abel. What's Abel? A type of Christ. You know what that fixes? That fixes the fact that a shepherd occupation, normally, 90% of the time, is a good occupation. Abraham is a shepherd. Joseph, he's a shepherd. Isaac, he's a shepherd. Jacob, he's a shepherd. Judah, he's a shepherd. Christ, he's a shepherd. And you got the idol shepherd, the Antichrist, showing up, but the thing as it starts is pictures Christ. And that thing comes through there with the good shepherd, layeth down his life for the sheep. That's the law first mentioned. You want to watch those things. And when that fellow Cain shows up, he has a mark. And the last man the Bible has a mark is Revelation 13, the Antichrist, who is the seed of the serpent, Genesis 3:15, who was born by the devil. He's the son of perdition. And Cain is that type. So Cain may have been a son of the devil. That's how close the thing is. All right, now John chapter 8. Sir? 1 John 2, I think it is. 3:12? Okay, got the wrong chapter. 3:12. All right, John chapter 8 now, and Christ talking to the Pharisees. Now here's the second thing. The first thing is that mark. Now here's the second thing. John chapter 8. John chapter 8, verse 43. And this is Christ talking to the Pharisees. John 8:43. Why do you not understand my speech, even because you cannot hear my word? Ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father he will do. Now watch this. He, the devil, was a murderer from the beginning. He was not. Where'd you ever catch the devil killing anybody? Where? The devil was a murderer from the beginning? Where? You never read about the devil murdering anybody? Where'd you read about the devil murdering anybody? You read about the devil having the power of death in Hebrews chapter. You never read about the devil murdering anybody. Where? Genesis 1? Where? Genesis 2? Where? Genesis 3? You know what the first murder is? It's Genesis 4. You know what the murder is? It's Cain. Cain. That's a tough passage. Christ said the devil was a murderer from the beginning. That's a reference to Cain. And Christ says the devil, the passage. All right, now I'll come to Genesis chapter 3. Genesis 3:1. So there's some overtones there that are real dark, see? And the question comes up, can the devil have children by a woman? So you have the omen, you know, and 666 and Rosemary's Baby, you know, and all these dumb people run down. Look at that, you know. Spend all this money, a couple of $1 million. Why, here's the original right here. All the rest of the stuff, that's just cheap imitation. That's kid stuff. This is the real thing here. Question comes up, can a woman have a child by the devil? Well, if she can, if it did happen here, I don't know what ever happened again. But if it did, you can't blame some women for getting real nervous right before they give birth to a child. And you sure can't blame women for getting upset about snakes. When you find a woman that loves snakes, you got you a peculiar woman. Because the Lord said, I put enmity between me and the woman. And right off the start there in Genesis, you see those things that people read through there and say, oh, that's just kid stuff, that's just myth, that's just legend. The people aren't thinking. You get thinking about those things in Genesis 1, 2, and 3, and man, those things are solid. You take this one here. Didn't you come into this world naked? Did you come into this world naked? That's how they come in Genesis 1, 2, and 3. They come in naked. You ever start thinking how peculiar that book is? If you picked up most religious books, it wouldn't start with a thing like two naked people putting stuff in the mouth. But it ought to. Isn't that what you do? You're born naked, and the first thing you do is start putting things in your mouth. And your mother, when you get old enough to know what's going on, don't put that in your mouth. Take that out of your mouth. Don't put that in your mouth. Genesis 1, 2, and 3. It's a strange book. I mean, you pick up some of the religious book, then Muhammad Huda said to Muhammad Shaba, Mahapadade, O great Kawana Om, that which is to be shall be, if that what is should not be, of what shall be if it is, if it's not what it would be. Blah, blah, blah. All this high spiritual floating junk. Not this book here. This book begins with you without a stitch of clothing on. Just where you were born. And says, don't put it in your mouth. So what do? You do. Haven't you seen the kid? You folks that have children, don't you understand what we're talking about here? And when you catch the kid, doesn't he blame it to somebody else? I've got 7 children, and I must have 8 because there's always something going wrong. None of them did. Did you ever notice that? I mean, when that book starts out, here, this man, woman in the garden, it's her fault. It's his fault. You see, whoever wrote that book made people. Whoever wrote that book. So it begins with people the way they are. Folks think it's old-fashioned, out of date. You don't have to worry about getting back to this book. This book is so far ahead of these scientists, man, they don't know where they're at. They catch up with once in a while, but not very often. You come in, you people, when you're born, you're not born with any clothes on. Here's that Charlie Darwin. I mean, what a goofball. Huxley and Einstein, all a bunch of demoniac, jackass-cal sapheads don't have enough sense coming out of a brain in a dark night. And I said that with charity. I mean, here these people go around and saying, you came from monkeys, you came from animals. How come the animals got their clothes? You haven't got yours. So they shed the clothes. That'd be kind of stupid, wouldn't it? The clothes will protect you. What's the idea of taking them off? See, folks just don't think that, well, all the scientists say they're naked. They got to put on clothes all the time. You start thinking, well, if the thing would be this afternoon, we'll gather here and nobody had a stitch on. Wouldn't that be something? Ever just sitting there stark naked, you know? You'd be so embarrassed. You said it's just tradition. No, it's just the way you're made. You're just made so you're ashamed of your nakedness. That's what it says. That's how you're made. Why do streakers run? I mean, yeah, man. I mean, why the flashers flash, man? I mean, if everybody's just fine, there's nothing to be ashamed of, why not just strip off your clothes and take your time going downtown? Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Now you take right here, you see everything I've got on, it's borrowed. It's borrowed. If I took off everything I've got that I got from the ground or an animal, I'd be naked. No animal has bothered that problem. He grows his own scales, or grows his own hair, grows his own fur. But the man's naked. So that book, when we've been taught about this stuff about trees and Eden and Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel, we're not talking about fiction. We're talking about something real. I'll put this one on you. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to get kids to eat oranges and plums and grapes and apples and bananas and pears and peaches? You know why that is? Because according to this book, that's the first thing your parents ate. It was fruit off a tree. You know why you have such a time with spinach? And some of that stuff? Because that stuff grows in the ground. And that's what the Lord had them eat after they were put out of the garden. You see, what goes on in Lansing, Michigan all day long has no explanation except in here. You can't explain that thing. Why, you take Darwin's evolutionary complex, all that stuff fooling around, well, you can't explain. The thing won't come out that way. It comes out this way. On Genesis 3:1, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, all right, here he starts. Now the question is, when he comes in there, does he look like a serpent or does he look like an angel of light? That's the question. You say, but it says serpent. Yeah, but Moses is writing the account. Moses wrote Genesis. And the Lord telling Moses what to write. So Moses can write down what he actually was. See? Not how he appeared. Now, of course, maybe he did appear as a serpent. But then you wonder. Oh, now there's a double thing here. Look at verse 14. Most people say serpent, they think of snake, and yet it doesn't say snake. And yet it must be connected with a snake. 14. And the Lord God said to the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. But all those snakes and reptilian things down there are types of the devil. They're not the devil himself. The devil is not crawling around the ground in his belly. The devil in that Bible is going up and down between the first and second, third heaven as an accuser of the brethren. The Bible describes as a red dragon with 7 heads. That's not a snake going around the ground. But whatever that thing was, that curse is placed upon that reptilian class as a picture of that thing. Now, Sunday morning, and we get Revelation chapter 4, I was going to go into this more detail and draw pictures out for you and show you those cherubim, what happened to them, how one of them turned into this kind of a thing. But you got a thing here where those animals are types. Now, again, you see, if you have a Bible, you always have an inner road here that the world doesn't have. Here's Moses. He steps in, and he slaps down this rod, and the rod turns into a snake. And in comes Pharaoh's magicians, Jannes and Jambres, slap down the rod, they turn into snakes, and Aaron's rod swallows their rod. Now the snake that swallows another snake is a king snake. And the snake that a rattlesnake can't hurt is a king snake. What you got there, you got 2 snakes there, and one of those things picturing the Lord, and the other picturing the devil. You say, well, if the snake pictures the devil, how come one pictures the Lord? Because Christ said, as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the, see that? Thing's all in there. Now, you ever see king snake? But king snake has many crowns around it. You see that bird? Those crowns around him are gold and silver. The type of Christ. And that rattlesnake comes up there and slaps that thing. That old king snake just says, and wraps around him and crushes him and swallows it. That's your Savior. You have the same thing out there in the animal world. You got a vulture out there, a buzzard. Picture of the devil. You got an eagle out there. Picture of Christ. Out there in the world, in the aquatic world, you got a porpoise. He's a type of Christ. You got a shark. He's a type of the devil. That porpoise can take that shark on and knock him into a cocked hat. Did you ever see a porpoise traveling at full speed? I mean, full speed. I don't mean one of these tanks. Boy, you get out there 20, 30 miles offshore and see a porpoise go by when he's after something, and you wouldn't believe it. I mean, your little boat, you're going along there, you know, at a good speed, 25, 30 knots, and that thing just right there. I seen that thing, couldn't believe what I was looking at, man. It didn't look like his tail's even moving, but his tail's horizontal. The other fish, see, it's vertical, like that. That bird's tail horizontal. And he gets that thing going like that, and he goes, I've seen him go by that thing, you're doing 25 knots, go by like you were standing still. And what that old porpoise does, when you have porpoise in the beach, you don't have to worry about the sharks. Because the sharks get death of them. That porpoise, what he'll do is he'll back off, and he'll come in there about 35 miles an hour, and hit that thing with his head, and then he's gone. Off there, 400 yards. Turn around. Back again. Blah! Well, knock the brains out. And you take that porpoise is man's friend. That's man's friend. All right, now you have this thing in the garden where this thing shows up. Now, it might have been a serpent. I mean, it might have appeared a serpent. It might have appeared as a twisted, beautiful being, which Eve didn't recognize to be dangerous because with no curse on the serpent, man, or that snake-like figure, maybe didn't scare her. And you get the problem of reproduction up, and then you got your real sure enough problem. Because Eve in the passage doesn't actually, in the passage, partake of the serpent, she partakes of the fruit. Now the question comes up, did the devil have any connection with the fruit? And you get this thing where in the old woodcuts, the tree is like this. And then around that tree, maybe you've seen this, is a serpent. And he has the apple in his mouth. When those things are made, in the old cuts, they almost always make that serpent around that tree, connected with the tree, like he was part of the tree. Turn to Ezekiel. It's a tough book. It's a tough book, I'll tell you. If you think this book is just a book telling you how to live a goody-goody life, you never looked at it. This book here it's rough. It's rough. I'll tell you, nobody's got the bottom of this one yet. It'll take more study than they've been doing to get all this stuff out of here. All right, let's get Ezekiel chapter 20. Take a while to find this thing I'm looking for. I want a thing here, make it 32, I guess. No, I want 31. Ezekiel 31. Ezekiel 31. Strange passage. Ezekiel 31, verse 2. Now we know that the devil speaks through beings and uses other beings. For example, when the Lord wants to speak to the devil in Ezekiel 28, he calls him the king of Tyrus and addresses the devil in the king of Tyrus. When Jesus turns around and rebukes Simon Peter, he says, "Get thee behind me, Satan." See? Like Satan's in Simon Peter. So it could be the devil in a serpent or a snake. It could have been something like that. But there's some other things here. Ezekiel 31:2. I'll tell you, I probably could paint it, but it'd be a surrealistic painting when I paint it. I could probably paint some picture showing the transaction took place in the Garden of Eden, but it'd be a surrealistic painting. It wouldn't be the kind of thing where every line led in every line like a photograph. There'd be an overlay. There are electronic and spiritual forces there moving back and forth between objects and things that you couldn't, nothing like it going on now. It's another scene. Ezekiel 31:2. Son of man, speak to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to his multitude, whom art thou like in greatness? He's like this. He's like the Assyrian, 31:3. The Assyrian was a cedar in Lebanon. He was. 8. The cedars in the garden of God could not hide him. What's that got to do with Lebanon? Verse 9. I have made him fair by the multitude of his branches, so that all the trees of Eden that were in the garden of God envied him. Verse 16. I made the nations to shake at the sound of his fall when I cast him down to hell with them that descend into the pit, and all the trees of Eden. 18. To whom art thou thus like in glory and greatness among the trees of Eden? Yet thou shalt be brought down with the trees of Eden in the nether parts of the earth. Isn't that a strange passage? I've taken types of the Antichrist, the king of Assyria and the king of Egypt, and I liken the trees. And liken those trees to trees that were in the Garden of Eden. And those trees go down to hell, like that the judgment of God on them. It's a strange business. All right, one more thing here, and then we'll try to get these pieced together. Genesis 3. Genesis 3, verse 13. Genesis 3:13. The Lord God said to the woman, What is this thou hast done? And the woman said, The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. All right. She eats, and then chapter 4, verse 1 says this. And Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And she again bare his brother Abel. Now look at those two verses, and notice there's no conception between Cain and Abel. She bears Cain, and then she bears Abel. The indication of the twins. And if they're twins, then you got this other thing that, see, begin to open up some things. That's what Hitler was interested in experimenting on, twins. Out in Africa, they considered twins to be a very ill omen, and to this day, in many African tribes, when twins are born, they kill them. And they did that for centuries. Why is that such a bad luck? Because the firstborn that are born are twins, and one kills the other one. Well, here these boys born twins, and the question comes up, well, the devil messed with Eve. How could twins be born without both of them being the devils? And I've checked in this because I was interested in it. I've talked with nurses and doctors, and they insist that although identical twins cannot be conceived that way, but the other kind of twins can be conceived even as much as a week apart. A week apart. Let alone a couple of hours. So you've got a thing there where one of these boys could be literally the devil's boy and the other one Adam's boy out of there. And when they come out, boy, there's no doubt about the second one, Abel. He's a type of Christ. He's killed. Blood of Abel. And no doubt about the first one, he's a type of the Antichrist. He's a type of a Christ-rejecting Jew who kills his brother. Now again, you see, the book has keys. If a fellow went to the Library of Congress and got in there, there'd be 4 million books in the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. I take those 4 million books and they reach up there and pull out one of them, a dime store Bible. Then he could take the other 300, or what do you call it? 399,999, is that the right number? Whatever, no, 3 million. 3,999,999. And take those 3,999 books and take them out and just dump them in the wastebasket, and he wouldn't lose anything if the book he took out was this book. Because all the 3,999,999 he dumped off here wouldn't have in it what I'm getting ready to show you. Now here's what I'm getting ready to show you. How come all the Jews in Michigan are city folk? You know, people they just look at that stuff and they just take it for granted. Don't even think about things like that. You say, I know some Jewish farmers. You don't know a handful. You don't know a handful of Jewish farmers. You know a handful of Jewish farmers in Illinois or Nebraska or Iowa or any place else. You say, well, Jews are just city people. No, they're not. They're farm people. Why would you think Jews were city people? Where'd you get that stuff from? You ever read Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Samuel, Christ? They're an agricultural people. They're not city people. First man to build a city was who? Cain. First man to build a city was a murderer. Why, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're not city people. You take David, not a city people. They're farmers, they're shepherds, they're cattlemen. So when they came down to Egypt and got the land of Goshen by servants of taking care of cattle, how do you explain the fact that Jewish people were a farm people until they rejected Christ? And after that, they were a city people. And they've been a city people ever since. I'll show you. Genesis chapter 4. Doesn't like the King James Bible, it's heard at the National Geographic. Genesis chapter 4, verse 11, God talking to Cain. Now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from my hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. They call him the wandering Jew. And the Jew can't make a living off the ground. Why? It was cursed for his sake. Why? He killed his brother. He killed his brother. Who's his brother? Jesus Christ. His blood be upon us and upon our children. So those Jews come up shepherds, cattlemen, agriculture to the first advent, and from the first advent until they went back in 48, they're a city people. And over here, they're a city people over here. And the first man to build a city was Cain. And you won't find that in the 3,999,000 books in Congress, because God didn't write them. God wrote this book here. All right, so this question here about Eve is this. One of two things. Either the devil, who was a serpent, came in there and appeared as an angel of light, which would be a 33-year-old male, and seduced Eve, so she gave birth to the seed of the serpent, the son of perdition, the marked man, child of the devil, Cain, or else There was nothing in that garden but a serpentine being typified by a snake. The devil worked through to reach Eve. And when he worked through that serpent to reach Eve, he worked through the fruit that she took orally, which had some connection with the serpent. And those things beyond that, I couldn't help you, because beyond that it isn't clear.
With that, though, they had evidently this beast, or whatever it was, had legs because of this serpent.
It had what?
And then it had legs or something because it was made to go about.
Yeah, unless before it might have had legs, it might have moved across the ground that way without the legs. Could. There's some real interesting sidelines here. Think about this one here. They get digging around in the dust and the dirt, and they come out like this. And somebody says, "What's that?" And a fellow says, "Well, that's triceratops." They get digging around the dirt, and they come out like this. And they say, "What's that?" And they say, "That's Tyrannosaurus Rex," you know. And they get digging around the dirt, and they come out like this, and they say, "What's that?" And they say, "Well, that's Diplodocus." A little longer tail than that. And they get full of these things that are terrible lizards. They're reptilian class, whatever they are. And that devil there in Revelation chapter 12 described as a dragon is described in detail in Job chapter 41, and what you get is a description of a thing like this, except it has 7 heads. Well, if the devil was a cherub and has been converted into that, then the question comes up, when they found these things, what were these things? How do you know they weren't something that was converted into that? Like the brother says, talking about maybe that serpent had legs before he was cursed and then was transformed into something with no legs on it. Maybe these things here were what the devil was working with back there in Genesis 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And they got cursed and they were turned into that right there. Yeah, it did. Well, brother, I was trying to say that for Sunday morning in Revelation 4. So I will, if it's okay with you. But we will get into it in Revelation 4. And I'll tell you why. Because when you said cursed above cattle, you hit the place. Because in Revelation 4, among those cherubs up there, there's a calf. And in Ezekiel chapter 1 and 10, among the cherub, there's an ox. And in Ezekiel chapter 1 and 10, the cherubim have a split foot like a calf. So they're all related to cattle. And that's why he says, the serpent is more son, a beast of the field. Those 4 cherubim are also called beasts in Revelation chapter 4, living beasts. And what you've got here, you've got 4 beasts representing the creation, and one of them is missing. And the one of them missing is number 5. As in 5, the 5th cherub is gone. And the other 4 are still up there. But all those cherub are related to cattle because they have a split foot called a calf's foot in Ezekiel chapter 1. We better save that for Sunday morning, getting those going. Yeah, evidently he did. He starts right in and she doesn't question it. Yea, hath God said, she shoots the bull at him like she expected him to talk. So if he was just an ordinary animal, maybe all the animals talk. I don't know. That'd be something good on the road. Morning, dog say morning, how you?